Is your workplace human rights friendly? Well, today, with the trend of courts and tribunals strongly supporting individual human rights, managers and employees need to be careful about crossing over the line. And here to give us his insight onto how to prevent human rights disasters in the workplace is Stephen Hammond, the author of Managing Human Rights at Work, 101 Practical Tips to Prevent Human Rights Disasters. Welcome, Stephen, to Agenda.
Hi, Paul. Good to be here.
Now, it's hard to imagine in the 21st century in cities as diverse as Toronto and Vancouver that we have to worry about human rights disasters.
Well, most people aren't intentional about it, and the human rights legislation doesn't care about intent, so that's an interesting part of it. It's just that our stereotypes, our prejudices get in the way. People's idea of what is funny and versus what is sexual harassment is going to be very different, and so there's lots of opportunities for people to just screw up inadvertently, and it can lead to a lot of hard feelings in the workplace.
Do you have some examples of some of the common ones that many of us might be witnessing in our workplace and maybe aren't even that aware of?
Sure. A lot of us want to fit in. And so in order to fit in, whether you're a new employee or not, you're going to tell jokes and you're going to say things that you think that everyone else wants to hear. And it could be that other people have a relationship where they can tell certain jokes. It can be sexual or it can be racial or other things they're okay with. Then when suddenly I enter into it and I have no right to do that because I just want to fit in with others, then someone else is going to say, hey, you know, I don't appreciate that from you, even though maybe I saw other people doing it together. They've established that kind of relationship. I haven't done that, and so I can mistakenly make comments that are going to be inappropriate for people.
Now, what are the consequences of a workplace that allows this sort of thing to happen?
Actually, the consequences can be quite great. First of all, you're going to have less loyalty, you're going to have higher absenteeism, you're going to have more people going off on stress leave and sick leave, you're going to have higher turnover. Any of the independent studies will show that people, if they're not happy, if their basic rights are violated or just trampled on in some way, that they're not going to want to be around.
How do you fix some of these injustices and things that happen in the workplace, or if you have people who are constantly offending others? What do you do about it, other than an outright firing of someone, perhaps? Oh,
actually, firing should be the last thing that you should do. Now, there are times when that's going to happen, but really what you should be doing is bringing up the problem and then explaining why it's a problem or why they shouldn't be saying or doing certain things. And then you say, here's the corrective actions that we're going to take in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. Either I promise not to say or do those kind of things anymore, or that if I do, then there's a little more corrective action until eventually it could be if I'm not going to change my ways, then it could be that you'd have to get rid of me. But that's rare. Usually people are willing to change their behaviors, and remember that a lot of stuff is inadvertent, and so they don't realize they're doing it, and so once you point it out, then it'll change.
So you find in your experience that even once that bell has been rung, and it can't really be unrung if somebody says something very offensive to somebody,
yeah,
that you can get over it, that you can forgive and forget and move on?
Well, yeah, I say actually if you lose your temper or if you're saying things that are inappropriate, that aren't related to human rights issues, you can apologize for that, and people have a tendency to get over it. When you start saying and doing things based on who we are, either things that we can't change, such as our age, such as our race, the place of origin, or things that are important to us that are also protected by law, choices that we make like marital status, religion, those kind of things. When you say something inappropriate to that person, that's going to take a little more for that trust to come back, I find. But it will if you do the right things. Most people will recognize that you made a mistake or you've learned from it. In other words, if you really had these views that were quite bigoted, let's say, and then it's because you didn't know any better, that's how you were brought up. Through some conversations with other people, then they'll realize, okay, you got it.
Let's talk a little bit about accommodation and trying to, you know, make things work in the workplace. How do you get the employee to buy into what you're pitching here?
One of the things that I say in my book is, if you can't get all the employees to buy into it, don't worry, because you still have to do this by law. And it's not a cop-out, but it's just sometimes people aren't going to be that accepting of it. But the notion of accommodation is to say, especially in areas of disabilities and religion, is that the courts have been very strong to say, if you've got someone who has got a bit of a difference, let's say wants a religious holiday off, or let's say needs a monitor with bigger writing on it because of a visual impairment, then the courts have said you've got to accommodate them to the point of undue hardship. And a lot of people are saying, well, wait a second, that's giving special treatment in some way. And so what you might need to explain to them is, no, it's a little more like an insurance policy. If you go your whole life where you don't need to be accommodated, great, that's good. Just like insurance, if you never have to collect on it, you know, that's a good thing. And the thing with this is that it's there for people. If you need it, if you have a disability of some kind, then it'll be there for you as well. And so you want to make sure that people give those protections.
So you're making it pretty darn clear that everybody will benefit this possibly at some point in their time in this workplace.
Yeah, yeah, they could. And so that's why it's really important to say if you get into even a car accident, it doesn't have to be related to work, you get into an accident and something changes, then you'll be thankful that there is accommodation.
A fairly pragmatic way of getting people to buy in, right?
I would think. But one of the other things also is that you have to listen to people when the employees say, because Stephen does something a little bit different or takes these extra days off because of his religious beliefs, or because he's disabled and so he's not able to do, let's say, 20% of his work, he only does 80%. And when the employees say the rest of that's falling on us, where we have to pick up the slack, then you need to listen to that and don't ignore that and recognize that they might have some frustrations on this. They shouldn't be harassing anyone because of, you know, they shouldn't be harassing me because of my difference. But at the same time, if you've got those frustrations, then talk with the staff, find a way, okay, do we need to adjust the workplace a little more in order to make it equitable? So it's not that people are bigoted just because they bring up some frustrations over accommodation.
And maybe show some empathy towards them for their situation and offer some other perks, perhaps.
Oh yes, there's not, you know, the whole idea is to say that if you need to accommodate someone in their workplace, it doesn't mean that you can't make some changes in other areas of the workplace.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're talking to Stephen Hammond, author of Managing Human Rights at Work. We'll be back right after this. You're watching Agenda.